As federal budget negotiations continue to stall, the chaos at our southern border has emerged as a key issue for the impasse. With more than 10,000 migrants a day pouring over the border, conservatives in Congress have called for their signature border bill, known as H.R. 2, to join with funding cuts as a part of any stopgap funding measure. Joining me now to discuss the situation at our southern border and more is Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Senate Finance Committee and the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to see you.
Tony, always great to see you as well. Thanks for the work you're doing.
Appreciate that. So you've been to the border recently, and this is something you've been speaking out on for quite some time. We have 10 to 11,000 migrants crossing the border daily. Now, you've highlighted the flaws in how the Department of Homeland Security is handling this situation. I mean, give us a read on what you see and whether or not there's an end to this in sight.
Yeah, right now there's not an end to this in sight. Of course, we go back to May. The administration said the plan is working, the numbers are down, we've got this at hand, until it suddenly was not. We had said all along in May this was a temporary dip that was actually managed by the cartels choking down the border, not by the Biden administration and their policies. Because I can remind you, the border is secure. It's just secure on the south side of the border. You don't cross the border without paying the cartels or they'll kill you. And so that number is really affected by what the cartels are putting across on a day-to-day basis, and a very loose policy from the United States that's been very permissive for people to be able to come across in their thousands. So we're continuing to see people literally from all over the world coming and paying cartels the fee to be able to get across the border, and the Biden administration is releasing them into the country within hours of when they're crossing, and they're somewhere in the country literally unmanaged. We have no idea who their criminal record is, anything else about them, but they're just being released over and over again. We are trying to just choke this down to say we like legal immigration, but we are strongly opposed to illegal immigration.
So how do you explain the fact that you've got governors and mayors that are along the border that have taken actions to try and to stop this flow of illegal immigration, but the Biden administration is actually stopping them, fighting those governors trying to protect their state borders with Mexico? I mean, how do you explain that?
Yeah, it's unexplainable right now because, again, multiple states, Texas is a great example where they're putting up concertina wire. They're trying to just discourage people from coming across. And literally the Biden administration is ordering folks to be able to cut the concertina wire to be able to let more people in. Their focus really is about processing people into the country as fast as possible rather than deterring people from actually coming across the border. This is an issue that they are abusing the asylum system. Everyone knows they're abusing the asylum system, but yet the Biden administration won't step up and support actually fixing that definition of what asylum means. That's the key piece that has to be resolved so that we can actually tell people, hey, you don't qualify for asylum. If you want to come to the United States, we welcome people from all over the world. You just have to legally apply to go through that process and do some vetting. You just can't come across the border and be released a few hours later. That should not be what any country is like.
So, Senator, as a part of the Homeland Security Committee in the Senate, how concerned are you from, and a lot of these folks are coming over for economic purposes, but mixed in with them are those who have evil intent. How concerned are you about national security?
I'm extremely concerned. In fact, that's one of the areas I continue to be able to express with the administration, with Ali Mayorkas and the White House team, is to say you should pay more attention to national security issues on this when they seem to be very flippant about it. The last time I was at the border just weeks ago, the main comment from the Border Patrol is what's shifted now is the number of people that are non-Spanish speakers that are coming across from West Africa, from the Middle East, from Pakistan, from Russia, from China, areas that are not typically coming across. These are individuals coming. They're just saying their name. They're saying their country. They're being released into our country. We're checking against the terror watch list. But even if the people they travel with are not on the terror watch list, but there is a terrorist in the middle of them, the person on the terror watch list is being pulled out, but all the people traveling with them are just being released in the country. Now, I don't know how often Sunday school teachers travel with people in the terror watch list, but literally, if one person, we had a situation not long ago where a Russian was pulled out who was on the terror watch list, other Russians traveling with them were released into the country, but one was actually pulled out. it's a huge national security risk that this administration is actually participating in, just hoping that nothing turns out bad. That's a terrible strategy.
Well, the data would suggest that bad things are happening as we see uptick in crime related to some of these border crossings. So, Senator Lankford, are Republicans right in attaching the border security issue to the debate over government funding?
Yeah, right now, Republicans are just looking for every place they can to actually get the administration's attention on this. I'm not a fan of government shutdowns. Government shutdowns really hurt Border Patrol agents and others at our border. They lose their pay during that time period. They're going to lose contractors. There's all kinds of things that'll be lost for them. So let's make a really difficult job for them even harder at that point. And it'll take morale from where it already is now as low to even lower when they're not getting a check. So it is difficult for Border Patrol. We need to find other places to be able to find leverage on this. But I would tell you right now, Republicans are just asking the question, if this administration won't do anything to be able to stop the border crisis, how do we get their attention to be able to focus in on this, to just deal with things that are obvious to everyone, but they refuse to acknowledge it?
I would think that the president should meet with the House Speaker. He's asked to meet to discuss government funding and the border crisis, but the president has refused to meet.
Yeah. This is what Washington, D.C. is supposed to do, and what the American people expect us to do. People with differing opinions in Washington, D.C., sitting down, working out our differences, and trying to be able to solve problems. America doesn't have a past where just one voice gets heard and runs over everyone else. All voices are supposed to be heard. So for the president to say, I don't want to hear half of Americans that oppose me, which quite frankly is much larger than that on immigration. The vast majority of Americans disagree with the president's immigration policy. He doesn't want to hear a differing opinion on that, is counter to just basically what our republic is built on. Multiple voices sitting down, working out our differences, finding a solution and moving forward. We've got to sit down like grown-ups and actually resolve the problems here.
You know, that situation has only gotten worse. And, you know, you've been here in D.C. almost as long as I have, but it's gotten worse over the last decade and a half. We don't talk to one another. We talk at each other is primarily what we see happening between the two political parties. Now, I know behind the scenes there's friendships and there's conversations, but we don't see that publicly.
We need to. This is one of those areas, and for this White House in particular, they've been particularly reclusive, where the president's just not meeting with a lot of members all the time and is very limited on his schedule. That makes it much tougher to actually negotiate hard issues when you have that situation. But for every White House and the House and the Senate, those leaders should be able to sit down on a regular basis to be able to talk, to be able to visit. It's the same thing. And there are people that agree or disagree with Chuck Schumer and with Mitch McConnell, but we should agree that two of them should be sitting down and talking often. You should have the same thing in the House of Representatives with the Speaker and with the Minority Leader to be able to sit down and to be able to talk through all the different issues. Right. That should be typical for us to be able to talk this out, because that's the nature of our republic, to be able to work things out.
30 seconds left. By the way, nice suit that you're wearing there, Senator, and I understand that that's back to the uniform of the day. We're no longer having gym shorts and tennis shoes in the Senate chamber.
You know, at least the Senate can do something. Last night, the Senate actually put back in the dress code that all Americans assumed was there and should have been there. Basic decorum shouldn't be something that we have to actually pass something in the Senate to be able to solve. But yeah, last night there was that passage in the Senate late to be able to say, we're back to suits and ties. Shorts and hoodies should not be appropriate in the United States Senate. We are the United States of America. We should be setting the example for the world and actually not only do things respectful, but actually appear to be respectful to each other in the way that we dress. Why don't we set a standard? That'd be a new thing for the Senate.
Well, and there was agreement on that, so maybe we're making progress. Senator James Lankford, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you as well.